Let me ask you this, and you tell me if this sounds familiar. Yeah, sure, whatever works for you. Uh, if you want to, yeah, I guess, if that's what you want to do. Those are typically the go-to lines, and you say them over and over and over, even when you want to really just say, no, I don't want to do that. No, I don't want to go there. No, it's not okay. Because inside you are feeling uncomfortable, you're feeling drained, and you're just feeling exhausted. That's what it sounds like when you are uncertain of who to let in, when to let them in, because the rules keep changing depending on who is knocking on that door and when they knock on that door. So welcome back to the EQ Classroom and to video number 4 of the Boundary series. And today we are going to be talking about spongy boundaries, why they happen, what they look like, and how you can work to a more balanced boundary style. So what are spongy boundaries? Spongy boundaries are just the way they sound, and they work just like a sponge does, because they're really not discriminant of what gets to go in and what stays out, right? Because a sponge, you can throw any and all kind of liquid on it and it's going to absorb that liquid when other hard objects can't get in. And with spongy boundaries, your limits, the limits that you set, pretty much depend on your mood, your stress level, and maybe even just the situation. They are not based on clear and intentional choices. 1 minute you're chatty Cathy and oversharing and causing your listener to say, oh, Susan, that was a little bit TMI. And other days you are completely shut down and you shut everybody out. One day you are a yes machine. Yes, I'll do that. Yes, I can. Yes, yes, of course. Yes, let's go do this. Yes, 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 yes. And the next day you're snapping no to everything. No, I don't want to go there. No, that is not okay with me. And the way people perceive the spongy boundaries as you being unpredictable or uncertain, that is exactly why they come about, is from uncertainty and a lack of self-trust. You just don't trust yourself to set those consistent limits. Maybe growing up, you didn't grow up with people who had healthy limits in place, so you never had a good role model to learn from. Maybe you've been punished for saying no. So now when you want to say no, you're not sure if it's okay. Or maybe you're still trying to figure out who gets to have access to you. So you're going from one end to the other, the yes, the no, the too much, the too little. But at the root of spongy boundaries is the inconsistency, the uncertainty. And sometimes those things can make you feel like you don't even have control of your own life. Some of the signs that you could look out for to determine if you have spongy boundaries, or maybe even just to be able to identify them in other people. That way you can know how to interact with that person as well, right? Because you'll be using your emotional intelligence to help establish those relationships. One sign of spongy boundaries goes along the lines of that saying that perhaps you have heard, I know I've heard it, where it states that it's easier to share with complete strangers, which is fine as long as you're sharing, right? But in the case of spongy boundaries, that sharing gets too deep, too personal, and too fast with a complete stranger. Meaning that you don't have those boundaries set in place for yourself to say, okay, maybe this is not what I should be sharing with this individual person at this time. And then on the opposite side of that, which is another sign, is that you don't share at all. even with people who are close to you. But again, this has to go with the inconsistency, right? Because either you have rigid boundaries where you don't share at all, you have soft boundaries where everybody gets in, everybody has access to you. But with spongy boundaries, you go from one to the other, from one to the other, not sharing. Sharing too much, sharing nothing at all. Sharing nothing at all, sharing a little bit. But it's never consistent. Another sign is that you may find yourself saying yes in the moment, but then later on, you're sitting there stewing and marinating on resentment because you really wanted to say no, you just couldn't, you just didn't. And then there's a sense of unpredictability. You feel unpredictable to others and even to yourself. Imagine a friend asks you for a favor on Monday. You say yes, you're okay with it, even though you really wanted to say no. As the week progresses, you start feeling drained. By the time Friday comes around, hey, Susan, are you going to be able to give me a ride after work? Remember I had asked you about it on Monday? No, I can't. So now they're confused. Maybe you're confused. Maybe you're feeling shitty because of your response to your friend. But that's the spongy pattern. Spongy boundaries can also have some negative impacts on your life. Some of the costs can be the unstable relationships because people don't know what to expect from you. Heck, you don't even know what to expect from you. There's a sense of self-doubt in yourself because you don't trust yourself enough to make a decision and be okay with it without feeling guilty either one way or the other. And then there's the obvious emotional exhaustion because you keep going from one to the other, from one to the other, and then feeling exhausted, feeling drained because you don't know if you made the right decision the first time. It's got to be tiring, and that gets heavy. And then there's the diminishing trust, right? Because if you're inconsistent, if you flip-flop, if you go from one to the other, one extreme to the other, one to the other, one to the other, the people that you build relationships, they're not going to trust you. They're not going to be able to depend on you. You don't even trust yourself. Think about it. If I were the person with spongy boundaries and you don't know what to expect from me, if we happen to be coworkers and you, from the example from earlier, you asked me for a ride on Monday, I said, yeah, sure, I got you, don't worry. And then Friday, you come back because we had already agreed on it, and then I did a 180. Not only did a 180, but a 180 with an attitude. Would you ask me for another favor again? Probably not. Because you wouldn't know which Susan you were going to be getting from one day to the next. And it's not that you don't care. It's not that I wouldn't care about my friend. It's just that my boundaries shift too much. And nobody knows the rules of who I am, not even me. And even though it might seem like it's just a boundary style, that's not going to affect you. Why are you making such a big deal about this, Susan? No, it does affect you. It is important. There's a saying that I use and kind of goes into a general perspective, but I will tell people it's something very simple. If you're no good, then you're no good. Meaning, you have to be good with yourself, to be good for you, and to be good for those around you, everyone around you. Family, friends, strangers, coworkers, everybody. But like with everything, there is a way to improve. There is a way to go from spongy boundaries to flexible boundaries. There is a way to go from soft boundaries to flexible boundaries, a way to go from rigid boundaries to flexible boundaries. But again, it all requires effort. It all requires you playing an active role in your own life. Making that decision that, yes, I am going to do something for myself. Yes, I'm going to do something to improve my relationships because I care about my kids, because I care about my spouse, because I care about my relatives, because I care about my friends. I'm going to do something for me to improve those relationships because I care about those people. A few things that you can do to go from a spongy boundary to a more consistent boundary. You can start with the good old pause. Pause before responding. Don't immediately jump to a yes, or don't immediately jump to a no when you haven't decided what it is that you want to do. Why did I say yes, that I would volunteer for that thing over the weekend? I'm so... You know what? Let me check my calendar. I'll get back to you on that. I'm not sure if I could commit to that yet, but let me get back to you. Let me think about it, and I'll get back to you. Instead of maybe fear and guilt guiding your responses, let your needs be the guiding light to what you do. Instead of the, but if I don't go, then they're not going to be able to. If I don't say yes, then they won't have enough. If I don't do this, then they're not going to. No. Because it's not about them, it's about you. If you want to help someone out, you have the time, you have the energy, and you want to give it to this particular activity for this particular person, then do it. But do it because you want to. Do it because it's okay with you. Not because you're going to feel guilty for not helping that person. Not because you're going to be afraid of that person being upset with you for not doing whatever it is they asked you to do. Because it's not about them, it's about you. And then create a set of boundary responses, right? Like the ones that I mentioned earlier. Practice using those. Simple phrases like, you know what, I don't know if I can right now. Can I get back to you? Do I have to respond right now, or do I have a little bit of time to think about it? If they say, no, I need an answer right now, then you know what? Then I'm sorry, I can't. Actually, that timeline doesn't work for me. Can we work on something? Can we try to figure something out? If we can't, then I can't. I can't commit. It does not work for me. And then practice self-reflection. And ask yourself, after an interaction that makes you feel a little bit off, ask yourself, did my response align to my values? And if they didn't, how can I fix that for next time? Right? Because if you got it wrong the first time, if you got it wrong right now, it doesn't mean you have to get it wrong the next time. But that does require for you to self-reflect. Invest that time in yourself. Offer yourself that grace to say, hey, you know what? Maybe I didn't get it right this time, but I will get it right next time. Offer yourself that grace. Practice self-reflection so that you could improve your relationship, starting with your own. And again, with this boundary series, as we've discussed spongy, rigid, and soft boundaries, right? None of those. Having those types of boundaries does not mean that you are broken. That just means that you're in the process of learning. Because clarity and understanding comes with practice. If you go buy a book, just because you pick up that book, it doesn't mean you're going to know everything that's in there. You have to actually open it and read it and try to understand what those words are telling you so that you could comprehend, so that you could have clarity. And this is the same thing with you. If you don't take the time to read your own book, to understand who you are, you're not going to gain clarity. And in the long run, yes, that is going to cost you. It's going to cost you relationships. It's going to cost you time and energy, and it is going to cost you peace of mind. And in my opinion, those are probably the most valuable things that you could possibly have in this life. Spend some time with yourself. Get to know yourself. Take care of yourself. Protect yourself. So here's the reflection for this topic. Is there somewhere in your life where you feel you are unpredictable with your boundaries? And if yes, where? Drop it in the comments. Maybe it's with your family, maybe it's with your friends, maybe it's at work. If you want to go a step further, when you identify that boundary, write it down and start noticing those patterns. In the next episode, in episode number 5, we are going to talk about flexible boundaries. Flexible boundaries are probably considered the healthiest and the ideal style of boundary because this style of boundary allows you to protect your peace while still being able to make connections with people. Healthy connections, purposeful connections. So if anything from this video spoke to you, I'm going to ask you to please hit that like and subscribe button, and then possibly share with someone that this might help. And I'm going to ask you to do one final thing. In the comments, drop the phrase clarity and consistency over confusion, because healthy boundaries start with you being consistent. I'll see you in the next class.